Hey everyone, so excited that y'all are all here for this amazing panel that we have put together for you all. Our moderator is going to be Tamara Egan. She's the executive director of Emerge Louisiana, which she's going to talk a little bit more about. We have some of their alumni on the panel, and I think it's going to be a really great discussion about women in leadership, like what it takes to get into leadership and what they've done in their leadership capacities. So, Tamara?
Sure. Thank you, Charlie. I'm so excited to be here with all of these incredible women tonight. And before we get started, I just want to tell you a little bit all about Emerge Louisiana, which recruits and trains and provides a powerful network for Democratic women running for office. And Emerge was founded when a young woman was running for DA. And after her race, you know, she realized it was really hard. And everyone who was there supporting her, her donors, her friends, her kitchen cabinet, they realized that there was no institutionalized network to help women run for office and that it was a huge struggle. So they founded Emerge. And as her political career advanced, Emerge expanded. She eventually ran for attorney general, and Emerge has expanded into over 20 states now. And she's currently the vice president of the United States. So that's the founding story of Emerge. Emerge Louisiana was founded in 2017. We graduated our first class in 2018. We have over 70 alums, 3 of whom are here tonight. And starting in 2021, we've got nearly 30 alums in elective office. And the point of Emerge really is that political power takes time to build, and so does shifting culture. And that's really what we're investing in here at Emerge and at Emerge Louisiana. And that's what separates us from some of our sister organizations like the Run for Somethings and the She Should Runs. Because what we're doing is building a bench in Louisiana. We're building a pipeline because the Steve Scalises and the John Kennedys started in their state legislatures. And today's school board reps are tomorrow's mayors. And so we're focused on cultivating that entire political life cycle. And that's why we're here tonight, because it starts in student government and it starts now. And it's time. So thank you all for joining us tonight. I'm so excited y'all can be here. I'm going to be asking questions of our panelists that have come from the LSU community. They'll each have approximately 2 minutes to respond. And if anyone else wants to jump in, we'll have about a minute or two afterwards for anyone who wants to add anything. At the end, we're going to wrap up. We'll have closing statements from everyone. So if we can right now, I'd like to go around and have all of our panelists introduce themselves. If you can share your name, whether you've run for office or if you're serving in office, and what your day job is, and something that you're excited to accomplish this year. And if we can start with Morgan.
So my name is Morgan Lamondre, and I am currently the legal director of STAR. It stands for Sexual Trauma Awareness and Response. It's a sexual assault center, and we have branches in Alexandria, Baton Rouge, and New Orleans. So we kind of cover pretty much all of central and southeast Louisiana. And one of the things that we do provide is legal representation to sexual assault survivors on college campuses during Title IX proceedings. So that's one thing I definitely wanted to make sure people were aware of on this panel. But I have run for office. I am an Emerge alum, and I ran unsuccessfully for office in 2019. But one of the things that I was most proud of in that race is that I requested that campaign funds be used for childcare to our Louisiana Ethics Board. They initially told me no, although in the middle of that process, we found out that they'd actually approved the request for a man before, and they allowed childcare to campaign funds to be used for childcare for at least 4 men in Louisiana. But when the woman asked, they said no. So I appealed that decision. One of my proudest moments was in February of 2019 when so many people supported me. They came to the ethics board hearing where we, that one by one, there was political science professors from LSU, Tulane. It was pretty amazing, and they overturned that decision. And so us, like many of the states that have sort of set certain precedents for that. We now have it to where if you are a working parent, you can use those campaign funds for childcare. So that was something I was really proud of. But my number one passion has been my job at STAR, representing sexual assault survivors. So I feel like I'm at work and I want to popcorn somebody, but and Angelina knows what I'm talking about because she's been at STAR before. But I will let you pick the next person, Zamara.
Thank you, Morgan. Representative Carpenter.
Thank you. I am Representative Barbara West Carpenter, and I represent District 63, which is the northern part of Baton Rouge. I'm a second term state representative, which I'm enjoying it very much. My day job, I serve as the Dean of International Affairs and University Outreach at Southern University. Thus, I have been involved with volunteerism, international work, working in the community all over. So I'm quite familiar with working and helping people do what they need to do or get where they need to go. I enjoy doing what I do. I am now the chair of the East Baton Rouge Parish Democratic Executive Committee as well, of which Charlie is a member. And so it just rolls from one thing to the next. And so I'm very involved, but I enjoy it because it's quite a pleasurable opportunity for me.
Thank you so much. Representative Landry.
Hey everyone. I see a lot of names and faces I know in here. I'm newer rep Mandy Landry. Last year was my first year in office. I'm a longtime practicing attorney, 15 years now, and I am one of the post 2016 election women who was just real mad about a lot of things. And the main reason I decided to run is I had no plans, and I found out that the House seat that I live in was open because someone was term limited and there were no women running for the seat. And I was so furious about it. And I said, I'm going to have to do it myself. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done. And I don't regret it. It's been a lot of fun. It was really hard to do it as someone completely outside of the political machine here, but it has given me a tremendous amount of freedom to speak my mind and to file when I want to file. And I just have to say, talking to students is my favorite thing because y'all give me so much hope for what's coming next. And if you can just kind of push up the compassion and open-mindedness of a generation, I would appreciate the help. Anyway, and I love my coworkers and all the women on here. I know I also did Emerge, the boot camp, after I decided to run. So I did things a little weird, but if you're ever thinking about running for office or working on campaign, do a training camp. For sure, do it. They will teach you so much. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Representative Landry. Former Representative Smith.
Well, first of all, happy Black History Month to everyone. I just wanted to get that out. I am Patricia Haynes Smith, a 12-year legislator, termed out in 2019. So I did run for the Senate, but unfortunately did not win that race. And that's another long story that I could tell anybody about on why, but that's nonetheless. But as far as getting out of the legislature, but also before the legislature, I served 13 years on East Baton Rouge Parish School Board, the chair of the school board. So I had a lot of experience in political, stuff because my grandfather was very involved when I was growing up. So I got to see a lot of the inner workings of how folks work together, how they don't work together, and how you can stand up for yourself and do what you need to do. Because I got a lot of my tenacity and a lot of my drive from what he did when he was involved in everything. And since I've been out of the legislature, I did work for Power Coalition and for Vote during the 2020 elections and for the mayor and all of those folks who were running as an independent contractor consultant. And now, and I guess even before that, I was involved in a conversation with a nonprofit who gave me an idea that I needed to be their executive director for for the for the nonprofit and for a project that we're working on. It's called uh, Home Start Early Childhood Visitation and Technology Program. So we're starting an early Home Start program, and I'm making our announcement next week. We got a $100,000 grant from Blue Cross Blue Shield, and we're always looking for money. As you know, nonprofits always have to look for money to sustain themselves. So I've been working hard on that. And besides that, I'm excited. So I tell myself, that's it.
Thank you so much. And also an Emerge alum there.
Oh, you want to know what the most? Yeah, Emerge alum. And you also want to know what, I guess, for this year, what's going to be my my best thing that I can do. And that is to get this nonprofits project up and running and getting more people to donate to it, because this is the one of the most crucial things that we have in Louisiana is education of our 0 to 3 children. So
Absolutely.
thank you.
So much for that. Former Representative Flournoy.
Well, hi, I'm Melissa Flournoy, and my day job now, I'll start now, is I teach Louisiana politics and government at LSU, and I see a couple of my students on the Zoom tonight. But I started my political career, I'm from Shreveport. I was in the legislature in 1991 to 1995. I got elected when I was 30 to be in the House. And then I ran for the state Senate in 1995 and did not get elected to the state Senate. And I can tell you it's way more fun to win. Isn't that right, Pat? It's just way more fun to win. And
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But after I got out of the legislature, I finished my PhD at LSU in political science, and I started a group called the Louisiana Association of Nonprofit Organizations, LANO, because I really think that nonprofits are where people put their passion into action. And I think it's a great training ground for advocates and community leaders, and hopefully more young women will come out of the nonprofit sector to run for the legislature. And so I've spent my career working on public policy related issues here in Louisiana. I was the director of the RAND Corporation Gulf States Policy Institute. I've been the state director for Planned Parenthood. And I'm currently now the board chair for Louisiana Progress. And so I get to work with Charlie at Louisiana Progress. And so I'm just excited to be here with all of you and to really talk about sort of how to jumpstart involvement in advocacy and political efforts starting in college. So thank you for the opportunity to be here with y'all.
Thank you so much. And our candidates, Mia.
Hi, everybody. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited that this night is actually, all coming together. It's something that we've been working really hard on, especially Charlie. And so I'm so thankful for all of our panelists and our moderator for being here tonight. My name is Mia Lejeune, and I am running for student body president here at LSU. And for me and Angelina, this is a super exciting and historic campaign because if elected, we're going to be the first female student body president and vice president in LSU's history. And with everything that's, going on in our nation and in our state, and even down at the university level, it's so important to us that we have that female representation on campus and in the role of the student body president. Besides, getting involved in student government this past year, I currently serve as the president of Go Vote LSU, which is a nonpartisan, nonprofit student organization dedicated to voter registration on LSU's campus. And then I also took off my sophomore year to work for Governor Edwards' reelection campaign and have worked with him in the Governor's Fellows and various different programs around the state. And so I'm super excited for this opportunity to give back to my university that has given me so many opportunities, and especially give back to the women who have really guided me and helped me grow as a leader over the past 3 years. So thanks, guys, for being here.
Thank
Hey,
you.
y'all. I'm Angelina Cantelli, and I echo everything Mia said. Thank you so much to each and every one of you panelists and our moderator for being here tonight. Without women like you, Mia and I would not be able to do this or even imagine that this could be a possibility for us. And so a little bit about myself. I am a junior here at LSU majoring in psychology and English. Honestly, politics was never something that I saw myself in, even in the student government sense, until I came to LSU. I saw how much student government has a hand in making the decisions in this university, and I just needed to be a part of it. So I've been in student government all 3 years of my college experience. I'm currently the deputy chief of staff on the executive branch. And then outside of student government and school, I'm also a community education intern at STAR. Like Morgan had mentioned earlier, I get the joy of working with amazing people there. And then I am also a research assistant for the lab on anxiety disorders here at LSU. And so I get to work a lot with children who struggle with different phobias and anxieties. But overall, I'm excited to hopefully be the first female ticket to win in LSU history, but I'm even more excited to advocate for students on their behalf and truly make a difference on this campus. I believe that Mia and I are prepared to do everything it takes to storm this university with our concerns, our demands, and things that we want to see better, ultimately to have this campus be a safe and exciting experience for every student who goes here.
Yes, thank you so much. Charlie, I think we have a video to play now before we jump into our questions.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for inviting me here with you tonight to speak alongside such strong women. I'm proud to be a part of this discussion on women running for office and leading in public service. Thank you, Representative Landry, former Representative Flournoy, Morgan, Mia, and Angelina for stepping up at this time and meeting the moment. Running for office, whether it's in student government or Congress, is never easy. The bravest thing that a woman can do is put her name on the ballot and become vulnerable. From student government to the State House to the White House, we need women's voices heard at every level. I always say that when women don't have their seat at the table, we're on the menu. That's why we need more women in leadership advocating for us and the issues that we care about. I've served in the legislature for almost 20 years, actually a little bit over that. And I know that we still face challenges when we think about putting our name on the ballot. Louisiana still has one of the lowest percentages of women serving in elective office out of any state. There are only 6 women right now in the Louisiana State Senate. That's unacceptable. In 2021, we've had just 2 women represent us in Congress and no Black women. That's shameful. Our history must change. We have a long way to go, but you have to take the first step by putting yourself out there to lead. I have so much faith and hope looking at young leaders like Mia and Angelina. I want you all to know that I am here to support you at every step of the way because I was where you are at one point. I ran for my first office at 29 years old. So let's go get them, girls. Run, girls, run.
Yes, that was an amazing message. Thank you so much. So let's kick it off with our questions. The first is for former Representative Flournoy and Representative Landry. Representative Flournoy, you served in the legislature in the 90s, and Representative Landry, you won your term in 2019 and began serving last year. Can you set the stage for us? How did it feel assuming office during that time? And what was your biggest objective coming into office?
Well, I got elected 30 years ago, and that was a long time ago. There weren't very many women in the legislature. Mary Landry had been in the legislature, and she was the treasurer when I got elected. And I ran for the legislature really because you know, somebody needed to do it. I ran against a 20-year incumbent Republican, a man named Art Sauer. And I think the thing that I remember most about the process was that, you know, people were very patronizing to me. I was a young woman, and this was the first thing I ran for, and I was a real long shot. And I think I was really underestimated by a lot of the men in the legislature. And, you know, this is before we had term limits. We had people who'd been in the legislature since the 50s. You know, you had folks that had been there forever and had served with Earl Long. And, you know, it was just a very, very different old boys club when I was elected to the legislature. And I was really very interested in teen pregnancy and sex education. One of the reasons I ran for the legislature is that I ran a nonprofit program in Shreveport, and I was so distraught by the young women whose lives got derailed because they ended up pregnant 15, 16, 17, 18 years old. And I just couldn't believe that we couldn't have comprehensive health education in the school system and that we couldn't help people plan for a successful life. And I will say that I was dubbed the condom queen. I was made fun of. You know, I was literally the only pro-choice person in the Louisiana legislature at the time. And I have to say, I guess my biggest frustration of my entire career is that here we are 30 years later, and I'm still talking to Mandy Landry, who just got elected, and we still don't have comprehensive sex education in the school system. And we still don't have access to primary health care, and we still don't have, you know, comprehensive health education. And so, you know, it's like the more things change, the more they stay the same. And so I used to tell people being in the legislature was like having 105 ex-husbands. You had joint custody of the kids, but you didn't really like each other. And so, you know, I'm surprised that I think it may still be a little bit acrimonious now, even though hopefully I thought it'd be better by now. So I'm still fighting for those same issues around children and families and healthcare. And I hope this next generation can move us, you know, at least into the 20th century, if not into the 21st.
So yes, Melissa and I have talked frequently for years, and I am living her life now in 2020 and 21, almost the same that she had when she won. I've spent 15 years in a male-dominated profession, and I have never felt my gender so much as I have in the last year. The other women will recognize that too. I mean, just the amount of condescension and people not taking you seriously. And I've always hated the term tone policing because I never really understood what it meant until it was done to me constantly, all the time. And it's really hard. And I thought I was tough as nails, and I am just as sensitive as everyone else. But in terms of issues, you know, everything Melissa touched on are things that are important to me. And a lot of y'all are going to see in the next few years, and I'm going to ask Charlie and Mia and all y'all for some help, is, you know, incarcerated women, a lot of criminal justice issues, always reproductive issues, and housing has become big for me. It was sort of, I wasn't really intending to do much on that, but because of COVID, housing issues came up. And of course, anything having to do with housing and wages affects women, children, and women of color more than anyone else in the state. And that's something that's important to remember. I wish we had more women there, but the ones we have are strong as I don't know what. I'm glad to know Miss Barbara and some of the other Democratic women, they will tell you exactly how it is. And I will say this, as much as a lot of the counterparts way on the other side may not like some of what we do, when you come prepared and know what you're talking about, you will get respect for it, and they will shut up. They leave me alone now. I had all these nicknames too. The Hayride and all these people had all these nicknames for me, and they leave me alone now because I push back at them. So it's important to remember that, you know, they can dish it out, but they can never take it. And you just got to be twice as prepared as them, because they will expect you to be 10 times as prepared. But the good thing is all the women are. So. And I want to thank 1 second, because I don't know if I'll be able to come back. I want to thank also Charlie, not just for inviting me, but Charlie was with me all in the summer of 2019, sweating with me and getting heat sick with me. And I'm so excited to see him continuing the work that we did then with all of you.
Thank you both. It's so interesting to hear you both say that you ran because someone had to do it, right? And, you know, I think both of you have spoken about this a little bit. There still really is an old boys club. Like, we've made a lot of progress, but there's still so much work to do. We've moved up from being 47th overall to being 44th. We have 18% of our legislature as women. We don't have any women serving in statewide office. And you've all said it, and I'll say it again. That's unacceptable, and that's why we're all here tonight. So our next question is for Representative Carpenter. If you could talk a little bit about the relationship between the universities, student government, and the state, and do you think that student government leaders on campuses across the state have an obligation to advocate for greater resources from the state?
Yes. Well, first of all, I want to piggyback a bit on what Representative Landry said. She's come in, she's done a good job. And I had a good mentor. And every woman, excuse me, who comes into the legislature needs a good mentor. Because if you don't have that, you will get lost in the shuffle. I had a good mentor. Former Representative Pat Smith was my mentor. And I couldn't have had a better mentor than she. The first thing she told me, though, is never show your emotions. Never let them see you sweat. And for God's sake, don't cry.
Don't cry.
And those are the ones I took to heart and followed through with it. You have to have guts, and you have to have the ability to fight and fight back. And so for the women who've come in after me, that's the first thing I say to them, and they ultimately do well. Now, back to your question. I'm a consummate educator, so I know what the needs are on these college campuses. And being in student government is the perfect place for our young people to get a hands-on feel of what the needs of the colleges and universities are, because they experience it every day. They know when the computers don't work. They know when you have to shut the building down because the water isn't right. Because keep in mind, Louisiana is one of those states where a lot of money has not been put into higher education to keep the structure going. So these students experience it every day. And the student leaders have a seat at the table. They know what's going on. They also have the ear of the leadership at the university because they can speak up and say what needs to be said. So I think it's a perfect opportunity for leaders to step up, learn the ropes, and know which way to go. It's the perfect time to become a leader that will carry you further on. And I have found that many of the students who have been student government presidents have ultimately volunteered or interned at the Capitol. And so thus they've parlayed those skill sets into other opportunities and have become legislative people in their own right.
Thank you so much for that, Representative Carpenter. Mia, you lead a team that has registered nearly 6,000 students to vote over the past couple years. Representative Smith, you helped re-enfranchise tens of thousands of felons in Louisiana. What is the next step for each of you in advancing voting rights in Louisiana?
You can go ahead, Mia.
Okay, I was waiting for you. I was like, I'm anything for Miss.
Your name came up first. Go right ahead.
Thank you. No, but I'm super excited about the work that Go Vote has been doing on LSU's campus for the past couple of years. Consistently, we rank, in the top levels, competing against, Northeastern schools, liberal arts schools, SEC schools, and consistently we rank in the top 5 of amount of students registered on our campus. And I'm super excited and proud of the team that we have built at Go Vote. But one thing that does, cause me to lose a little sleep at night is that despite having, 75% of the campus, registered to vote, turnout is so low among college students, especially on LSU's campus. And I think that, because I've, not to, point fingers or pass blame, but I do think that there's a lot of burden put on the students when it comes to not only registering to vote, but, understanding why civic engagement is important and why it's important to participate at the ballot box. And so, the next step for me is running for student body president and institutionalizing voter registration and civic engagement on LSU's campus. I don't think that a student should be able to register for housing and a meal plan and not be able to register to vote at the same time. And then I think that needs to continue. Not only do we register them, but our university needs to step up and, educate students on civic literacy and educate students on why it's important to get to the polls. And so I think that, it starts with the student body saying that this is something that we want and something that we need to see on our campus. And it doesn't, we come to LSU to receive a higher education and to become better citizens and better leaders in our state. And the number one, step to doing that is to become a voter. And so no student should graduate this university without understanding the importance of voting. It doesn't only help us in the long run, but it helps LSU. If 37,000 students went to the polls every year to vote for policies and people that actually, care about higher education and wouldn't put it on the chopping block, as Representative Carpenter was saying, the first time we hit an economic struggle, then I think LSU would be, and schools across the state would be much healthier and much happier and much more hopeful for the future. You go ahead, Ms. Sad.
Missed the last part, but we did get most of it, just the last few sentences. But I do want to congratulate you, Mia, for the effort in making sure that students get registered to vote. And then also, I know that it was passed last year that you will have your own voting precinct on campus. Is that correct? You will be
Yes,
able to vote on campus, not spread out and go elsewhere. So that's really another accomplishment, because maybe it will entice other students to become a part of it. But we're still struggling with the issue of our inmates being able to vote. That was one of my legacy bills. I struggled with that bill for 5 years, but I was persistent with the bill because I thought it was truly the right thing to do. And the efforts that were put in by the Vote organization, by Ashley Shelton's organization, and all of the historians about the 1973 Constitutional Convention came in and told the story of when that convention was held, and people who were getting out of prison automatically got their right to vote back. And the legislature then felt that wasn't the right thing to do, so they came back and put this rule in about under the order of imprisonment. As long as you were on probation, as long as you were on parole, you were under the order of imprisonment. And we did everything we could to bring in people who were incarcerated, who had been incarcerated, who were in the world working and raising their children and paying their taxes and could not go into the voting booth. And that, I think, was just an atrocity. So that's what we worked on. People telling their story, and one of them even said, well, since I can't go vote, I just won't pay my taxes. And I don't think you let me do that. So we worked really hard to get those individuals to the polls, and we're still struggling. And that means, but them getting to the poll is that if they are on parole or probation, and they've been out of prison for 5 years, they're able to go and vote. So that means they can vote while they're on probation or parole. That's a unique, especially in Louisiana. So we try to register them to vote everywhere we go. I'm still working with the vote group on trying to get people from our prison systems to understand their right to vote. So the most important thing is that they've got to be educated. They've got to reduce their fear. They are afraid to go to the parole office because they've been away from it so long, to ask for a letter that they need, that Mr. Kyle Audouin decided they needed a letter to go and actually get their privilege back to vote. Most of them don't want to go to probation and parole. So we struggle with that piece as well. And these are some people that have been out of prison for 30, 40 years. And they say, why do I have to go to probation and parole? They ought to know that I'm not on any paper, as they call it. They're not on paper for anything. So the Secretary of State's office is not doing a very good job. In fact, they were not happy about the bill, period. So they're not doing a very good job in ensuring that the transition for these individuals is that they should be able to get that letter sent to them, or the fact that they have not been on paper for so long that they should automatically get that right to vote back. So that's what we're struggling with and will continue to struggle with until we can get every last one of them, hundreds and thousands of people across the state of Louisiana who still aren't voting. And we still need to make sure that they know and be educated on how they can actually go and vote. I see them all the time. When I go places, I don't go to too many places right now because of COVID, but when I've been out, I can tell you that I have run into so many people who walked up to me and say to me, I know you. You helped me get out of prison, or thank you so much for getting my right to vote back. That's important. And when people can recognize that you're working for them and not against them and working for the betterment of them being in society and regaining the privileges that they need to have in order to be a citizen in the state of Louisiana, because that's what it's all about. So this time, as we're coming into redistricting, I know that folks are really going to be working hard to make sure that there are fair districts. But one of the most unfair part of redistricting is individuals who are in prison, who are considered a population in a city or town or village, and counted as population for that town or village as their people. They can't go anywhere. They can't participate in anything in that city, town, or village. And yet you count them as people and population to raise your numbers. That's unfair. And we tried the bill twice. I tried it, Joe Bowie tried it, I think Ted tried it. So it's being tried. And that's what you have to do. You cannot let the ball drop on things that you truly believe in. If you don't persist on those bills, doesn't make any difference how many times you bring them back. You will always find that you will end up somebody changing their mind. And that's what happened on that voting bill. Republicans changed their mind and they decided that we could have the bill. Basically, that's what I was told. We could have the bill, okay, as long as these things were put in place, like the 5-year cleansing period. So it's just a persistence. And one day that 5-year cleansing period is going to go away because some person is going to say, why do we need that? So that's my goal, is to continue to see these individuals get their right to vote back, and for the legislature to realize the inequities that they have put in place, especially when you count people who are in a prison, cannot do anything, but yet you count them as a citizen of that area, and they cannot have any whatsoever. They need to be counted where they came from. That's important. That adds to the population of other places, but not to places. In fact, Louisiana, where Kenny Havard was, I don't know if it's east or west, where Angola is. The individuals in Angola were counted as a population for that Feliciana area. If they were not counted, they would have no people. Nobody lives that way. So they would be relegated to have to merge with someplace else in order for them to even get any services. That's terrible, to count people that cannot do anything. So I talk forever on this because it's really a passion for me. And I just want to see the legislature continue to go down that path of ensuring privileges are gained for people who get out of prison, whether they're on parole or probation.
Yes, thank you so much for that answer. Morgan, you serve as the legal director of STAR, Sexual Trauma Awareness and Response. Former Representative Flournoy, you were previously the Louisiana Director of Planned Parenthood of the Gulf Coast and are a self-professed condom queen. Angelina, you're currently the president of Tigers Against Sexual Assault. What is your biggest concern with how sexual assault allegations are treated on campuses like LSU? And what can students do to improve the culture on campus in regards to sexual assault? Angelina, let's start with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I'm actually going to answer these two questions backwards and start with what students can do to change the culture surrounding sexual assault on campus. That's something that I'm really passionate about. That's the whole reason TASA was born. I had written a STAR blog post as part of my internship about how I believed that there needed to be a student-led movement against sexual assault on college campuses. And then I realized that I say that, but I wasn't doing it. So then came TASA. But through our work with Tigers Against Sexual Assault, the biggest thing that I have seen is that survivors aren't aware of their rights on campus whenever they are assaulted and they need to go somewhere. And so I would say that students can get educated about what Title IX rights are on college campuses, and also just in general about what consent is and what are healthy sex practices. And when students are educated, they can go on and share those things with their friends and truly change the culture one, like person by person on this campus and campuses like LSU. But that being said, I also believe that university wide, we've seen in the past few months that LSU has done some really terrible things when it comes to sexual assault allegations on this campus. And frankly, it's time for them to be held accountable for the allegations that have come against them, and for them to stop putting the burden on students to fix those things. I've heard time and time again from administrators that they are so proud of Tigers Against Sexual Assault and the work that we're doing here. And yet, when we raise important questions to them about how allegations are handled on this campus, we are skirted away and we are not given direct answers about what's really going on. And I'm tired of it. I know students are all tired of it. And so I think the biggest thing that LSU as a university can do is, first and foremost, anyone who covered up sexual assault allegations deserves to be fired. That's an opinion that I will not stop saying and I won't apologize for. I've said it to President Galligan. I've said it to the lawyers conducting this third-party investigation at LSU. And I'll continue to say it because it's not okay, and it doesn't create a safe space for students when people who have participated in that disgusting type of behavior to be allowed to continue working here. Beyond that, I think the university needs to take responsibility for educating students on this campus. They have so many resources when it comes to marketing different events on campus, especially in the athletics facilities, where it would be so simple for them to show short videos about what consent is or what your Title IX rights are, so that students are aware and there's never any question of where they're supposed to go or what sexual assault is. If LSU can start taking responsibility for those kind of things and being upfront with educating people about those topics, then it'll be clear that they actually care about survivors on this campus, and that it's not just talk for when national news stories come out. And so that's my personal opinion and kind of my soapbox for a few minutes, and I will pass it on to our other two panelists.
Well, you know, I'm really worried that LSU is soul sick when it comes to sexual assault. And I'm really worried that we've put athletics ahead of the health and safety of the campus. And I think that it's beyond time to have the hard conversations about accountability, not just in the classroom, but in the sports field, in the locker room. And I agree with you. One of the problems that we don't have good health education in high schools. You've got a lot of young people coming to college with their first experience of being away from home that are not necessarily knowledgeable about their own health care, are not knowledgeable about consent, are not knowledgeable about sexual reproductive health. And frankly, I think there are unfortunately a lot of young women who are coerced through date rape and alcohol and other things. And the bad news is LSU isn't alone. But I do think it's time for Title IX enforcement. All faculty members, staff members go through Title IX training. We are told what to do. And LSU needs to implement the plan, even if it has negative impacts on what are considered high value students or athletes. And so I think it's time for a come to Jesus, for lack of a better description, and a reckoning with all of the fraternities, sororities, sports teams, any organized organization, to make sure young people know what's expected of them, how to report, but most of all, how to prevent sexual assault. And thank God for STAR and TASA, because there's some great organizations providing some of that leadership.
So I also, like Angelina, want to answer the question backwards by talking about what students can do. And I think it goes to sort of the work that Melissa started out with. And really, I want to give a shout out to Representative Smith, because for years years at the Capitol, she, you know, when we say comprehensive sex education, it's not just how do you put on a condom, it's also having conversations about what is consent. What does a healthy relationship look like? It's not teaching anybody how to have sex like people think, but it is having the dialogue there. And she, for years, and Star was there to try to help. We did not get it passed because the same people who oppose it, you know, say this is going to teach people to have sex and not have morals. That is not what it would have done. But I have to give her a shout out because I feel like we need to continue her work and her efforts, and whoever that is, whether it's Representative Carpenter or Representative Landry, we need to continue that fight. But going back, we have to understand that people going to college haven't had the sex education that they've needed. So when we go to college, you also have to still think about that, right? Like healthy sexuality and not being afraid to talk about what is a healthy sexual relationship. And I know that's all taboo, but most rape is not necessarily, right, like the stranger jumping out of the bushes. So when you have all this stuff on college campuses, it's like, have mace, you know, walk to your car in pairs, don't get drunk. That is not how the vast majority of rapes occur or sexual assaults occur. It occurs when there are two people who maybe want to engage in a sexual encounter, but because nobody has ever taught them how to talk about boundaries, how to talk about what each person is okay with, what each person likes, it's all considered taboo. And so ends up being that somebody goes to a place that becomes a sexual assault because everyone feels like, oh, well, that may ruin the you know, that may ruin the mood. No, everyone is entitled to have healthy consensual sexual experiences, and on college campuses we need to be open about talking about that. So I think, you know, we need to get rid of all this taboo about, you know, do you like this? Or yes, ask somebody if you want to kiss them. I mean, like, it doesn't ruin the mood or anything. I think if anything, you know, we say if you're too drunk to talk about it, you're too drunk to do it, you know, plain and simple. So that's what I think the college can do. And then in particular, my biggest concern about how things have been handled, I will say that, you know, a lot of people have seen where the rules, the regulations, the Title IX rules have been changed. I think there's hope that with the new presidential administration, we will see some of those regulations turned back. I will say that I am a fan of having an advisor who can be part of the process and cross-examine witnesses. I don't want to get into too much details, but I will say we offer those legal representation of sexual assault survivors on college campuses in our service area. I was successful very recently, in particular at LSU. And, you know, the sanction was the highest sanction you can get. So when you have people who aren't on your campus helping you, and I think that was my biggest concern before, is that a lot of people will refer people to in-house sort of advisors or services. There's nothing wrong with the people who want to use those services, but inherently it's different from having somebody who's off campus, who's not affiliated with the university, and who could very, you know, succinctly tell you what your rights are and when the university did something wrong. And I think in the past, where a lot of stuff was held in-house, people aren't going to point out when they, part of the university, maybe have done something wrong. I do have a lot of, you know, I'm very optimistic about what I see as far as efforts. I will say at STAR, one of the best things I've seen is also other universities reaching out to us, other Louisiana systems, to sort of be proactive and not reactive to things that are happening on campus. So I do think that that's, you know, something to look forward to. But I think in general, we need to be okay. We need to support survivors. Yes, people who are accused have a right to have a fair, impartial hearing. But when it comes down to it, we need to make sure that perpetrators do not distract everyone on the issues and make these hearings something that they are not. So I could talk all day about this, and I'm very passionate about sexual assault. And I just want to say too, some other shout outs. Representative Carpenter, I think I mentioned this before, everyone else. She was responsible for finally mandating the climate surveys on college campuses. Before, we had a bill that was like, colleges, whenever you have money, you can do them. Well, of course, they didn't really do them. She helped us get the mandate. Representative Landry went to war for me last session, and she definitely, of all the things we heard, I can't even describe what we experienced with some of the bills, but she went to war for me, and we're gonna probably come back strong. And then over the years, I lost count with how many bills Representative Smith had for me, because whenever I'd ask her for like, hey, can I have like however many spaces, she just wouldn't tell me no. So I almost felt bad. But for the most part, especially on those non-fiscal years, she just wouldn't tell me no. So I'd always go to her, and she'd have like 5 bills, and she would be like, I don't know which one we're doing today. Like, so I just have to tell everyone, these are great champions for sexual assault, and they are who have been responsible for some of the rights that you see that survivors have on the campuses right now. So, all right, I'll shut up.
No, thank you all. Thank you all for these incredible answers, and for all of this passion, and for supporting each other in this work, and really just showing up and doing it. And so, for the sake of time, we are running a little short. So this is going to be our final question for everyone, and it's also going to be a closing statement. So in 60 seconds or less, if you can, what has been the biggest obstacle you have faced as a woman in leadership? Representative Carpenter, let's start with you.
Okay, probably well, I don't have an obstacle when I'm in the chamber in the Capitol, because I fight just as much as the men do, and I don't care what they say or what they do. I stand my ground. But I think the biggest obstacle for a woman in leadership in politics is raising money. It's very difficult for a woman to raise the kind of money to run a good campaign that the men do. And so I find that the women have to work harder, work smarter, and raise more money. That's probably the most difficult obstacle women face.
Thank you. And I see Charlie put that plug in the chat. If everyone can check it out to see the Venmo and the PayPal and the Cash App. Yes, like this is a huge part of Emerge and our training. Raising money is hard, and it's something that is a huge struggle for women running for office. So let's help these women run for office and win. Representative Smith.
Okay, I need to say 2 things first, and that is to congratulate Angelina and Mia for stepping out to do this, because it will be a historic event if and when, not if, when you are able to step into those positions. But I also want to thank Angelina for Tigers Against Sexual Assault. We wouldn't have a limit or a minimum floor for marriage in Louisiana if they had not brought that bill to the table, because people could get married at any age in Louisiana during that period before we got that bill passed. Thank you for that too. But the most, I guess, disappointing obstacle is that many of the men, whether they're in your party or not, often refuse to listen to things that are not in their scope of their world. Many of them say that they don't have a problem with women doing things, but there are only a few men and most of them were senators, that would bring issues to the table that related to women. They very seldom brought, and that was JP, Morrell, who brought a lot of those bills to the table. And even I know in his last term, he brought the no tax on feminine products. So they didn't even like the idea of female prisoners being able to have privacy. So the biggest obstacle that I see is trying to overcome miseducation, I would say, of men realizing that it's not just their world, that we're in this world as well, and that we want to do things for women in the state of Louisiana to make their lives just as journey with a good journey, and that that and transition so that they can have all the things that men have. So I think that's one of the biggest obstacles that we have.
Thank you so much for that. And yes, that is not just their world. We are here and we are taking up space, and I will pitch it to you, Mandy.
That's right. Not going away. That's for sure.
Right. I mean, something that has been hard for me, but that I am constantly aware of it, is to remind myself, for every time someone fusses or yells at me, and they're almost always men, that there are quiet supporters out there. And so it's interesting. Twitter is a horrible cesspool of people who call me bad names and tell me bad things. And then Instagram is this like puppies and unicorns and rainbows, and lots of women who send me private messages that say literally thank you, or I'm so happy you're doing this. And I know everyone who writes me something nice, there's 10 more like that. And we need to do that for each other, because I talk about with the Orleans reps sometimes, even the men, that when we are in Baton Rouge, we feel like we're on enemy territory in that capital, because we really feel like we are working against other people constantly. It is a physical stress on us. And so to hear that there are people out there agreeing with us and supporting us and rooting for us is so helpful. And especially when I hear from students or from women in very remote parts of the state, and they say there are no Democrats around me, I'm the only one, there's no one who's pro-choice, and I said I will adopt you. I wish more people knew that there is support out there, and I'm just saying that as thanks for everyone who reaches out and gives us support, that it is very much appreciated.
Thank you. Melissa.
Well, I'm a big fan of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and somebody asked her how many women would be enough on the Supreme Court, and she said 9. And so that really hit me, because I think our biggest obstacle is that we need more women in running for office at all levels in Louisiana and around the country. I'm a big fan of Emerge. And I just feel like there's a lot of opportunity for women to change the game, because, my favorite line that somebody mentioned earlier is that if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And so I think we need to be in every room where decisions are made, and women need to run at every level, because I actually think that even in the legislature right now, I think it's worse in 2021 than it was when I was there. I think there's more misogyny, more chauvinism, more mean-spiritedness. There's just a level of meanness in politics right now that is very disconcerting. And so, I think we need to support women. So I think the biggest obstacle for women right now is that we need other women to step up and write checks and be volunteers and be supportive and to vote for other women. And that, we can make a big difference in Louisiana if we support each other. And, I just couldn't be more proud of the work of Mia and Angelina and the young women that are coming up, because y'all are going to change the world. And those of us who've been around for a long time, we're going to write checks and dial the phone. And so, and help.
Yes. Thank you, Morgan.
So I like this quote. It's perfection is the enemy of greatness. And that's something that has really been something I've struggled with, in that feeling like I need to be perfect in order to achieve anything. And so Melissa, I think, said, just putting yourselves out there and doing certain things to just sort of make a difference. And I think it wasn't too long ago, I was having sort of a depressing week with clients and things. And I was just like, man, I wonder sometimes, does anything we do matter in regard to sexual assault efforts? Because there's just always sexual violence out there. It's like every single day of my life, I'm talking about rape. And so I think what I would say is don't let perfection stop you from any kind of progress. You know, with every step that you take, there is still progress. And I think in a state with Louisiana, we have to really, really be okay with those steps, because we're not going to move mountains in Louisiana with what the culture is here. But don't let feeling like you have to be perfect in absolutely everything hinder your ability to do something in order for us to shift the way Louisiana is, because every little step counts. And I think when collectively we all take steps, we are moving mountains. So that's what I would say. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Mia and Angelina.
So I would say that the biggest obstacle, and I think this kind of relates back to what all the ladies here said tonight, I think that the biggest obstacle to women running for office is our own minds in a lot of instances. You know, there are parts of our minds that have kind of been, you know, cultured and curated to think, oh, we can't do this. Oh, we can't speak like this. We can't, you know, have this opinion or use this tone. And, you know, that comes back, you know, you'll be running. I know Angelina and I have experienced it already. You know, we're running for office and we're saying hard things and having hard conversations. And, you know, we get, you know, blasted for being too aggressive or too assertive or mean or rude. And I think that, you know, it all comes down to the biggest obstacle is the barriers that we put up in our own minds and the barriers that have almost been put up for us in our own minds. And so I'm hopeful, based on the discussions that we've had today and the leaders that, you know, like yourselves, that I look up to, that the next generation of women can start to take down those own barriers within our minds and start moving forward. I mean, you know, once we take down that barrier that prevents us from, you know, seeking change or, you know, doing something that might be seen as radical, then we can start helping other women to do the same. So I'm very hopeful about where this campaign is going, and I'm very hopeful for what it means for the women on LSU's campus. And I think that we are, you know, off to a really great start in enacting change and starting a more progressive future for Louisiana State University. So I appreciate you all being here tonight and for supporting Angelina and I. And, you know, it's such an awkward ask, but again, that's the female obstacle in my own mind. But please, please donate to our campaign. It means so much to us, and it means so much to be able to touch more students and to get more people out to the polls for this election. So thank you guys so much. Check out the chat for that donation link, and we'll be in touch soon.
Yeah, just to close this off, Mia stole the words right out of my mouth, as always. I was going to say that as a woman in leadership, my personal biggest struggle has been my belief in myself. I think if the Louisiana State Legislature is an old boys club, then LSU's Office of the Student Body President is a young boys club. It is systematic, and we have seen time and time again that there is almost like legitimately a system that men use to remain in that position and keep power on this campus. And Mia and I are tired of it. And we said it over and over again, it's time for that to change. And so we're super excited for this. We're super excited to break through the barriers of our own mind. And I just cannot thank you all enough for coming out tonight, from our panelists to our moderator, to those of you in the audience. And again, please donate if you can. It would mean the world to us. Thank you all.
Thank you all so much. Thank you to all of our incredible panelists who are doing this work. Thank you to everyone who took time out of their night to join us. Angelina, you're right. This is systemic. There is systemic power in place to keep women out of power, and that is what all of us on this call are doing. I'm so excited for the two of y'all to make history in this election. I'm so excited for your tenure in student government, and I'm so excited for y'all to join Emerge after that, and to take on the legislature, to take on Congress, and we're all here for it. Check out their website. It's time2021.com. Cash App, Venmo, it's all in the chat. Please donate. Thank you all and have a great night.